Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and business with my co-host, Haley Pindle, the one and only
Wild
Haley Pindle. Let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up. Let's get fired up.
I feel like you sound more and more redneck every time you say it.
I do burst out. I've actually been practicing my Australian accent.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Show us.
Or nor. You probably hear me say that way too much and you're like, what is she even saying? And then that's what I'm saying. But yeah, no. Me and my boyfriend just speak in random accents randomly. And fun story, we were coming back from Tofino one time and we were doing it all the whole way back in the car, and then we got to the ferry terminal and the girl in the little box is like, can I see your tickets? And he's like, yep, here they are. And he couldn't break character and then he had to go with it.
That is hilarious.
It's so funny.
Was he embarrassed or was he like, no, I'm just rolling?
He's rolling right through it. He can't go back. Couldn't go back. Then she'd know.
That's awesome. I love it. Oh, well, speaking of spicy and dicey situations and topics, we've got a spicy topic for you today. Would you like to introduce our topic, Haley?
Contraception.
Uh-oh. People don't talk about it enough, right?
They really don't. And honestly, like, that was one of my motivators to talk about it. I first started talking about it actually on my blog because, like, when I was a young adolescent getting into this vast sea of contraception and the vast things that involve it, there was like no information on it, no information on like how it affects you as a person and your health. And I was like, how do I make a decision? How do I even decide on what to do or what's best for my own body if there's no information on it? So
right. And
dive really
you can get so many different sources from different angles.
Yeah.
And depending on how you think about it, right? Like, okay, so if we're talking contraception from a health standpoint, you'll get different opinions specifically from different healthcare providers.
Yeah.
I see that a lot in healthcare. And then it's also looking at, well, what is your moral stance on contraception, which is what we talked about before we started, whereas I was like, oh, this one's going to feel a little uncomfortable, but let's talk.
We like getting uncomfortable. So I would love to like just outline what your stance on contraceptive is. I think it's really valuable to have like different points of view from different aspects and different angles, like you said. So go ahead. What's your view on it?
Okay, well, let's start off with the health standpoint, which would be, I am not a promoter of the pill because I just think it's horrible for your health. Now, as I say that, there's going to be people listening that have been on it or are on it, and I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. So let's just clarify that. That's not what I'm not trying to do. But what I am trying to do is make you aware of the fact that you might be going through certain symptoms or having difficulty with your energy levels, and you might be thinking like, why do I feel this way? A very good place for you to start and look at is your body actually reacting to being on the pill? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Really?
And
Yes.
I feel like more often than not, if you don't feel any side effects, it's not that you don't feel them, it's because you're ignoring them.
Yes. It very much will affect your libido. It affects your energy levels. It literally affects everything.
Your
I've had
brain,
women,
your gut health, everything.
Yes.
Like it's
awful. And did you know that being on the pill actually affects women's mate choices?
It's true. It's very true, actually.
Tell us
There's
about
more
that.
and more. Yeah, there's more and more studies coming out about it. But it has to do with like, since it suppresses your hormones, right? It also suppresses estrogen levels. And during ovulation, if you kind of find yourself being a little bit more frisky, a little bit more spicy, that is for a reason. And if it suppresses it, then your mate choice kind of reflects that. And also it's got like effects on your mood. So if you're in a lower mood, you might not be super selective with your mate choice and things like that. So it just overhauls your body and sort of like your brain chemistry too. So obviously that's going to have an effect. And there's actually been people who were on the pill and then came off the pill and then they break up with their boyfriends, or issues start to happen because now your regular hormones are coming in, and you find that you're attracted to a different type of person.
Yeah, because it literally affects your pheromones.
Yeah.
Smell is such a
Yeah.
huge thing,
Yeah.
like such a huge thing, and it suppresses that, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm crazy and I don't know why I no longer like my boyfriend, you know? And it's so funny actually how much your cycle kind of plays into your not just mate choice but also like the attraction, you know? Cuz
Yeah.
every single time this is so bad. I'm going to out,
Uh-oh, what are
I'm
you
going to
gonna
out
say?
myself with this.
Are you
Every
gonna
single time
embarrass
I've
me?
broken up with somebody, it's been in my luteal phase. Like right before my period, I'm like, you know what? I can't anymore and I'm gonna do it. And then I did it, and then my period came. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, you
No
did it.
regrets. No regrets, but like every time if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it in my late luteal for sure.
Oh my goodness. You're so funny. Well, okay, and then because we're outlining like stance on contraception,
Yeah.
there's also the moral aspect. So, coming from the perspective of Catholic social teaching, it is any time that you are in a relationship where you would require contraception, or you feel you might require contraception, is first of all, it's like a marriage. You know, in Catholic social teaching, it's you're in a married relationship, you're in a committed long-term relationship, a man and a woman, and there's any time you are having the unitive act together, it is meant and made to connect you deeper and also bring forth life. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to like, okay, well, here's another baby, right? You can obviously track your cycles with a calendar and know, like, kind of keep track of where you're ovulating or not, but it's always being open to bring forth life in a relationship between a man and a woman. And that as life occurs at the point that cells come together. So that means any form of contraception that you would have, the cells are together, but now they can't implant. So that would be like an IUD, any type of pill that, makes the baby flush out and kind of like abort itself, abortion itself later, but it doesn't matter at what point, it's at any point. And so, yeah, basically, even when you're no longer giving the option of bringing forth life, so vasectomies, tubes tied, basically anything. So it's like you just only do the natural, the natural way of things. So yeah, that's my stance. And I
Yeah.
know some people a lot of people don't like that stance, right? So that's why when I said before, it's like, it feels uncomfortable to say out loud. But also, I feel proud to be an example of this is what I actually think, this is what I actually believe, this is what we actually follow, and then, live that out in your life. So good for
Exactly.
you.
And you know what? You're entitled to your opinion and everyone else is entitled to their opinion. So don't feel like you have to shy away from it, right? Like this is what you
Yeah.
believe, this is your belief system, and that's fine. I am on the other side. Like it's not that I don't believe that. It's just like I do have different morals, and I've been on birth controls. I've been on a bunch of different things and I do hate it. Just from a standpoint of my health. Like that's
Mhm.
kind of where my value lies. And like I've been on IUDs, absolutely horrible. I like the pill was terrible. There's so many different ones too. Like there's a ring, and usually it's either a combination of hormones that are like hijacking your system, or like you said, the IUD is there's a couple different IUDs. So like the copper IUD would be the one that like poisons everything in your
Yes.
uterus. And that one you definitely feel because it's a toxin in your body, right?
Yes.
And then there's different IUDs, of course, as well with progestin in it, and that's like a slow release kind of, and it works in different ways. Some of them can take away your cycle, because if the progestin is present, sometimes your body can think that's progesterone and it won't release an egg and it won't ovulate. Personally, I am so for fertility awareness method, like you mentioned, like tracking your cycle. um, I just think it's just so much better, one, for women to know about their body,
Yes.
and two, to like take control of it, because a lot of women think that you can like conceive at any point of your cycle, and then going on the pill for that really short period of time that you can actually know of, just to like have it ruin your life. It just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
But tracking your cycle, called fertility awareness, you can do it in a couple ways. Symptothermal method is definitely, if you're ever like scared, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this because I'm scared that something's going to happen. Like that's the most accurate way. It can be around like 98% effective if you do it properly. But obviously, human error is much larger in that than you just popping a pill every morning. So that's why doctors don't usually promote it. It's because of the human error. But if you do want to like educate yourself on it, and that's something that you value, one of the books, it's like the Bible of fertility awareness. It's called The Fertility, or Taking Charge of Your Fertility. It's got everything and anything you need to know about it, about tracking your temperature, about tracking your cervical fluid, what to look for, what not to look for, and just how your body works. And it's so eye opening. So I'm very much an advocate for that. And that's what I do as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And thinking about it from the opposite perspective too, of like, okay, we can think about the tracking and the contraceptive side of like, I don't really want to get pregnant type of mentality versus the I'm trying to get pregnant mentality,
Hmm.
right? So I like what you brought up about the awareness of, if you're not able to get pregnant, ways that you one, taking care of the health of your body, and there's different things that way, but then like knowing where you're at in your cycle could be helpful for that too on the opposite side.
Exactly. And if you know, like it's only about a week-ish that you're able to like conceive in your whole cycle. So if you know when those are and you are trying to conceive, like that's a very important thing to know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you probably will be frustrated if you just like willy-nilly it. You know what I mean?
Willy-nilly. Some people are just extremely fertile too. I
That's
happen to be in
true.
that
That's
category,
true.
which
I feel like that's more of the man though. I feel like they've got like strong genes in the man, because ovulation, it's very like it only happens once. It's only
yes.
one egg, and it's like that's it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if you got
totally.
strong swimmers, like that's I think
They're
bigger.
hanging out there. Well, okay, this is interesting that you say that too, because I feel like over the course of history, correct me if you think I'm wrong or if you have a differing opinion, I want to hear it. But I think what can happen for women who are struggling to get pregnant, and there's so many factors that are involved with that, right? Your stress levels, things that you've been through on your health journey in the past, like surgeries or different types of conditions or medications that you've been on, or even like long term on the pill, your age, like there's so many factors at play, right? But one thing that I do want to say to you is I think that women can blame themselves or feel obviously sad. They could feel ashamed. There's lots of emotions that can come with that. But there's also the aspect of your partner, right? Like is there anything going on with the man? Do we forget sometimes that there's like both need to be healthy and working properly? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But I
and
feel
that's
like it often
true.
gets kind of put on the woman, or maybe like they put it on themselves, or do you see what I'm getting
It's
at?
very, very true. And actually, I don't know the actual statistic of it, but
Me
it is
neither.
largely the man side too, right? So it's important for both of you guys, like if you are in that season of life right now, to both be happy, or happy, healthy, happy
To be
too, but
happy and
like
healthy.
healthy.
No, but yeah, to check like your own
Yeah.
health on both sides, and so like your health and then your husband's health.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And yeah, I definitely think that women take the blame a little bit. But also something that I see too, and something that I was kind of fearful for when I didn't have my period, because one of the side effects could be like long-term issues with your fertility and things like that. But women who just kind of neglect or go on the pill for a long time come off of it because they are trying to conceive or they want to start a family, and now they're running into issues, rather than if you were to take control of it earlier on, or at least know what's going on with your body before that, then you would have a lot less issues now.
Yeah.
Um, and same with like IVF. Like a lot of people neglect their health at a younger age and push it off, and then now they're trying to conceive, and now they have to do IVF and spend thousands of dollars on that because I don't know. I feel like it can be avoided to some extent more than it is being avoided.
Yeah, there is also a moral debate with the IVF if we're
Yeah.
getting really
Do it. Do it.
right, because it's the same thing if you're implanting, like, or if you're
Mhm.
basically, because they don't, what do they do with the extra eggs, with the extra cells that are united, that now you just throw them out, get rid of them, like that's a life, right? So
Yeah.
I like bringing that up because, you could say we live in a very more moral relativistic society, and most people don't know that their words are entrenched in moral relativism.
Mhm.
And it's like some people are actually for or against relativism versus like absolute truths, but a lot of people actually just don't even know that it's a thing. They don't realize it. They've just been
Yeah.
like raised in a certain time period, and this is just how we think and how we talk and what we do, and we don't think about it twice. And so I think it's important for people to realize that there is moral ramifications of a procedure like IVF, and most people don't realize it, nor do they think of it or look into it. So I will say a really good reference is the Catechism of the Catholic Church is so good at laying out like what and why there is a moral structure to things, and people don't realize that it's totally interweaved within our society and our culture. They just don't always know where it comes from. Plus they're super distracted so they don't look into these types of things anyways. But yeah, I find it really interesting because, okay, so I'm going to say it this way, from what I said before, certain things that I would say, okay, I don't subscribe to doing things a certain way. It would be knowing that, and I think this is a huge mistake that people make when it comes to morality in any way, is they think that if you disagree with their stance, you disagree or dislike them as a person. And that really ends up creating a lot of conflict and turmoil. So I have many friends who have a differing opinion than me, or they have done something. So I'm going to use, this is the extreme example, right? But I'm going to use the abortion example. I have friends who have had abortions. I absolutely love them as friends. I would not have made the same choice myself. And it's not out of a condemnation, but it's out of kind of that moral oughtness of like, well, what should I do? And I know people love to bring up the exceptions of like, well, what if this happened and it was this in this
Yeah.
case? And
Yeah.
they'll get all super nitty gritty,
Yeah.
right? And you're kind of like, yes, but what is the moral stance that you are
Yeah.
taking, and why is it that you're taking that?
Yeah.
Because if it's a choice between life and death, I will always choose life. And
Yeah.
not just for myself, because I think we also live in a society that, even the topics that we bring up where it's like self-care and your health and your choice and and it becomes very self-focused and self-centered. And people don't like to hear that, but if you reflect on it, it really does. And it's like,
Yeah.
are you just doing this for yourself only, or are you doing this for the life of another person, your
Yeah.
baby, or anyone else?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very valid point to make too. And it's like, I don't even I have never been in this situation. And I feel like if it were to happen to me, like if I were to put myself in that place, like right now, definitely would not choose the latter and like abort it because I'm kind of in a place where like I could figure it out. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But if I were like 20 years old or if I were like 19 years old, I can't say that I wouldn't do it because like it is very selfish of me to say, but like it would genuinely probably ruin my plans of life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it definitely goes down to like your morals, and I have no education on like the Catholic point of it, but like just growing up, that's kind of always been my standpoint of like if I were too young to do it, and if I were to, I don't know, give it a life that it probably doesn't, like I couldn't handle it and I wouldn't be able to give it a good quality of life, then it's like, well, why would I do it? You
Right.
know?
You know what's so interesting though is like I feel like people find their way, and you look at
Yeah.
this is what I think. I'm like, you look at young moms, there are these phenomenal leaders that have come out of situations of being born to young parents and coming out of dire situations. Like, think about how many times we hear the underdog story, and I'm like, don't you want
Yeah.
to give them that chance? Anyways, this doesn't have to be me like
Yeah.
convincing you or our listeners, but I do think that it's really important to contemplate and consider, because it takes you outside of yourself and it
Yeah.
goes, okay, what truly is love? Do you know the definition of love?
You're gonna tell me.
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's to will the good of the other for the sake of the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's love in and of itself is not self-serving. What we have very heavily entrenched in our society is something called mutual egoism. Have you ever heard that term? I might have brought it up before.
I don't think so.
No. So when you think about egoism, right? Think about like, I'm really thinking about myself. We use the term egotistical. What happens with mutual egoism is where we have this mutual understanding that we all are egotistical. So we are going to work together mutually to be like, I'm going to give you this if you give me that, and you'll give you that. I will fulfill your need this way if you fulfill my need that way. And we just go back and forth with always expecting something in return. So it
Yeah.
would be like, think about what people do when you give them a gift, and then they think to themselves, oh, so I didn't get you anything, so sorry. They feel compelled, they need to like pay you back.
Mm-hmm.
That is mutual egoism at work. When it comes to love, you don't expect anything in return. You are just giving for the sake of giving, for that person to essentially shower them with love, and they could do nothing back and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a very foreign concept, actually, when you
It's
start to think about it.
yeah. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one too, because like I do have a story of I had a bit of a scare. I feel like everyone who does like fertility awareness method, who's not like guaranteed like you could make human error, is a little bit scared to some degree. And one time my period was later and I was absolutely freaking out. One, because the person that would have been the dad was freaking a horrible person.
Oh, shoot. So you maybe weren't
I
making the best life choices at the
I was
time?
not, yeah, and it's on me. Like I'm fully aware that it's my freaking fault if that were to happen. I'm glad that it didn't. But I don't know what my life, because like my life is great right now. I'm just waiting for it to crash down. To be honest, it's so good like that.
Waiting for it to crash down. Oh, there's
You
some
know
good
how you're like on a
positivity
high
there.
and it's like life is literally like the best thing ever right now, and it's like I'm just waiting for the
Yes.
ball to drop. Um but yeah, I don't know what I would have done in that situation, because like if I were to go through with it, and like I get what you're saying in terms of shower it with love and unconditional love, but like in that selfish moment I'm like I don't know if I could do that. Have to be connected with this person for the rest of my life with this thing.
With this thing. No, baby, human life. This is what we're
I'm
talking about.
sorry. I'm sorry.
That's what people do,
It
though.
scares me.
They disassociate it with being a
Yeah,
human.
I have to make a
Yeah,
decision.
that's the only way you can do it. You
Yeah.
can't, because you are wired.
Yeah.
You are wired biologically and physiologically.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
to like convince yourself that it's not
Yeah.
a baby.
So grateful that that wasn't my reality, but it definitely passed. Like those were the thoughts that were passing through my mind at that moment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would find a way, though. Now you know me, so you're like,
I'm just gonna be really grateful that that didn't happen to me.
oh. But you know what? Like, kids are such a gift. There's
Yeah.
an aspect, and we've talked about this, because you want to have kids, and it's
Yes.
great. I love that, because there's such a large percentage of our population right now who selectively doesn't want to have kids, and I do really think it's for their own
Yeah.
reasons. They're
I
just
think
like,
it's also too like the financial aspect of it, which again, it definitely, like you said, morals. Like I would risk my financial position to have a child because it's worth more than my money is. Like to have, I do have something on my vision board. It's like a big family, like at Christmas dinner, and there's kids, there's grandkids, all like that's what I want. I want it. I will
I
not.
want it.
I will not stop until I get it.
Oh my goodness. Well,
But
you said something earlier though that was like, these are my plans, right? And this is the whole thing of like, God always laughs at our plans.
yeah,
Not to say that you can't make plans and have a vision, but knowing that I know this aspect of control is huge. And it's really be in command in the sense of like, yes, there's things that I can do to function better in this life, but there is a lot that's outside of your control too. And it's kind of looking at what are the controllables, what are the uncontrollables, finding peace in that and trust. And this is where faith comes in.
Yeah.
Now, I could just get into preaching a whole sermon here for you.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like having the faith that's like, yes, sometimes it's going to work out, but sometimes it's not. And then what? Well, what do people do when it doesn't work out?
Then you got to be flexible. Like you talk about it all the time. I do have like visions for myself, and I am pretty like narrow focused on it. However, if and when I have to pivot, I am very open to that, and I do believe that it's for the greater good. Like there's been many times where I didn't get what I want, obviously.
Good.
Like everyone in the world doesn't get what they want, and then you just have to be like trustful and faithful that like it didn't happen for a reason. It's because something better is coming, or it's because you need to be redirected into this this path, and you just have to keep going.
Or you have a big lesson to learn, and sometimes it's actually harder. Sometimes the suffering gets worse before, like, until you actually learn the lesson, right?
Exactly.
And it's interesting. This is pivoting a bit because I know we started this with contraception, and I'm thinking a little bit even just about like the relationship dynamics of things and how, thinking about not only what you want, but what you want for your relationship health. And I saw, Sarah Blakely, the lady who owns Spanx, and now she has Sneaks.
Oh yeah.
And her husband. I saw on Valentine's Day her post, and I don't know if it was her post or the husband's post. Jesse Itzler is his name, but one of them in a post that I remember on our 5th date or something, Sarah gave me this napkin. That must have been his post. And it was like, he has it framed, and she had written on the napkin, do you want to have four babies with me? ? As in like, obviously they were having that conversation of like, do you want to have kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's a thing, right? People will not be on the same page as that.
Yeah. And I don't understand why, if like you get to the point where you want to get married and you have not had that conversation, because that's huge. That's like life-changing.
Yeah.
Like
really
that's a yes or no. Like if you don't want to have children, okay, I guess this is the end of the road for me.
Well, and what are the contraception expectations?
Yes.
Because if you have a guy that's like, oh yeah, I'll just wear condoms, and then you have a girl he most likely it would be like he doesn't want to, so you need to be on the pill, or you need to be, or whatever, and it's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. And then
it's messy. Just keep it all natural, people. I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it all natural. And
it's going to be better for your health. And
yeah, I feel like that's a conversation that like sometimes it's not their fault. Men just don't know things sometimes. And you just have to explain it. And if it's a lot of the times like men will be like, oh, you're not on the pill because it's such a normal thing. And they don't actually understand how crazy we are on the pill.
Yeah.
And if you just like kind of educate them, I highly doubt that they're going to be like, no, you have to go on the pill. Even if
you can send them this podcast episode.
Even if you're unhealthy, I don't care. Like, I highly doubt it, but there are men like that, and just get out of the relationship. That's my relationship advice for that.
Right.
But yeah, no, fertility awareness is a great substitute for it, and it just takes a little bit of learning. You like nothing's free. You either have to pay the cost of feeling like crap, or you pay the cost of having to learn and spend the time to learn about your body and pay attention to the signs, and maybe take a 3-month period to maybe do a different variation of contraception while you learn about your body, right? And
Oh, this is a good question for you, Haley.
yeah.
What do you use? And you might have already said this, sorry, but what would you recommend, like for apps, like using an app to track, or what do you use? Or you kind of started saying that before.
Yeah, so you have to take your temperature.
The
There's
temperature, right? That's what it was.
Yeah, so there are apps that do sync with the thermometer. One of them is Natural Cycles. I have used those before, and it's just like an algorithm. So it's based on some rules. So I won't get too deep into the rules. That can be another podcast, but essentially, like after ovulation, wait 3 days until you have unprotected. La la la.
We like won't
Ooh la
say the
la.
word sex.
I don't want us to get canceled. Okay.
Okay, are we gonna get canceled for that? I just said it.
I don't know. Oh, hopefully not. Blurb it out. But yeah,
I don't know how to do that. Do you? Why did I say it then?
I don't know. Yeah, so Natural Cycles is one, and it uses an algorithm to tell you. It'll give you like green days if it's a-okay, and it'll give you a red day if it thinks that you're fertile. And typically, it's pretty, like it's not super narrow of a time. So the first few months will probably be like 2 weeks where it's red, while it's learning your body because it doesn't want any kind of error. And then what I use is Daisy. You can't get it in Canada yet. I had to deliver it to my friend's house in Seattle, and then she had to drive it up to me.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a thermometer and it syncs with the app, so it'll take your temperature and you don't have to enter any kind of number like you do with Natural Cycles. You'll have to enter the number that you see from the thermometer into the app. So it just syncs directly into the app. And again, it'll give you red days, it'll give you green days, it'll give you yellow days if it's like, kind of sketch. But yeah, those are the two ones that I really enjoy and have been like tested. It's like FDA tested and everything like that. Like it's backed up. But if you're just using like your flow app just based on what your last cycle looked like, horrible way. Don't do that. You need to take your temperature and you need to pay attention to your cervical fluid. Those are the two indicators of like fertility and if your body is going to ovulate, not based on your last cycle, because it can look different.
Okay, that's interesting because this is something I never did because ever since I was like 23 years old, John and I were married and I was always like, we can have kids anytime.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really ever, throughout the last decade or more of my life, I never really tracked. It was just kind of like, oh, we're having a baby. We're having another baby.
Yeah.
And I was always like, more babies. So in other words, this is like a good thing for you to know if you feel like this is daunting, please reach out to Haley because clearly she just kind of gave you the 101. But if there's more specific questions, she'll be happy to answer them.
I am your rule book, your rule handbook. Ask me anything. I love this.
Yes. And if you want to know anything about the moral aspect, you can contact me.
Yes.
Or you can write me like mean notes, but it's okay. I got thick skin.
No, we're not going to be mean.
Yeah, we're working
You're not going to be mean to me either. Everyone has different opinions. It's fine.
We're going to be mean to Haley for sure. No, I'm kidding. No.
I'm never coming here anymore.
We're going to be loving. We just talked about the definition of love. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. We love you. We love everybody.
Yes. Well, I hope that this wasn't too spicy for you, but also spicy enough to provoke your thoughts and keep you healthy and well and making good choices.
Yes.
Yes.
That's all we want.
Exactly. Share this episode with a friend and make sure you rate it and review it. Click the subscribe button. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.